All right, I apologize.
You met John and Jeffrey?
Yeah,
Hi,
we met.
Jeff. Yeah.
How are you?
Good, sir. How are you?
Ultimately,
Good to
these
see
are
you
the
again.
cover sheets
Okay.
for the plan. So I thought I'd just cheat since I'm here.
Tony?
And ask you to sign off.
Okay.
Trying to get this bid here
No.
in the coming weeks.
We're getting ready to
As soon as
start.
it, well, can we do cheat though like that?
Yeah.
Or can you leave me?
You can sign the sheets in it. If nothing happens, nothing happens. This isn't modified like your,
Is it okay for me to sign it before, or should I wait?
they're just the title sheets for the package.
Oh, okay.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting of the Community Development Committee to order, 7:02. Roll call vote. Joe Miller. Here. Dave Janik. Here. Mr. Van Truren. Here. Mr. Bukovac. Mr. Winarski.
Here.
And Mrs. Wasilk.
Here.
And I see that, entertain a motion.
I'd like to ask that we excuse Mr. Bukovac, Mr. Kukuka, and Mr. Ramsey. They will not be here this evening and have submitted such letter.
Mrs. Wasilk. Motion and a second to excuse members of council. And the administration as well. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And there are none. They are excused. And we have Mr. Jim Zimnick from Lorraine County Metro Parks here to discuss
You doing this backwards?
the agreement for the easement of Phase 1 of the Beaver Creek Trail.
Are we doing this backwards? Do we make a motion to switch, or does that matter? Because I think the other one's
I
supposed to be
switched the
first.
meetings because Jim's here.
That's what I thought, but I
Yeah.
just put in just in case of public. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good, okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to
You
speak to
step
council.
up to the podium there, Jim.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to come before council tonight to ask for consideration of the easement we're going to require off of Beaver Creek Park for the first phase of the Amherst Beaver Creek Trail connection to the Holstein Reservation. So I think what you have in front of you, and I think it's circled, is it's really one very small corner. It's an existing sidewalk that's near the existing soccer field as it approaches the North Lake Avenue. And right now that is currently, as the deeds go, that's deeded to the city of Amherst. That sidewalk then becomes the beginning point or one of the terminus points of the trail connection for the Beaver Creek to Holstein Reservation Phase 1 connection. So again, what's before council is the request for an easement we can take that sidewalk, convert it into a legitimate trail path, and become the beginning. And I think you can see that path then will go down North Lake across Route 2, make a right turn on Cooper Foster, go down past Premier Toyota, you make a left turn on Holstein, and then that'll go to the end now, which is an existing guardrail. And then Phase 2, as we continue to talk to TJ Co. and other property owners, will then continue, I guess, north towards land that actually we own and easements that were acquired several years ago, including a 12-acre parcel just north of that was owned by the owner of Fox Creek Golf Course. We acquired those 12 acres at the end of last year. So Phase 2 trail will then continue to the north up to that parcel and actually be able to cross Beaver Creek on that 12 acres to the north. So, but again, right in front of you tonight is just that small piece there by the soccer field that we're asking for that easement. So, thank you.
Any questions?
Answer any questions while I'm here?
Any questions, Ms. Wasilk?
Mr. Zimnick,
Yes.
it also looks, I'm just curious, it also
Yeah.
looks like the trail is going to go off to the west at some point, or is that just a border there?
May I see?
Yeah. Is this off to the west here?
Yeah, well, actually, okay, so what you have in front of you was, I apologize for this older drawing here. That would be something that was envisioned a while ago. Once, this was actually before Target and Lowe's were developed.
Oh,
If you will, we don't have an existing trail connection going down Cooper Foster, but we did recently acquire the old pony trail
I wondered.
that will go north of that. And we're working with the Campana, Bob Campana and Sean Brady. If anything, Councilman, we will probably look to make a connection by where Key Bank is, Deer Park, or Deerfield Village, and go down Deer Park, is it Deer Park Road, and take that back towards the Pony Trail, and working again with Mr. Campana on some of his property that he owns by the office park, and look for some easements that he's offered us. So we'll continue to make that happen, but those are later phases. Right now, our focus is really getting this trail constructed here in Amherst.
Okay.
Again, phase one
Okay,
is.
okay.
No, that's fine, and at some point, I'd love to come back and share with council our updated vision and plans here as we continue through 17 and 18 and where we're looking to go with this. It's real important because we want to get our trail plan adopted by communities and down to NOACA, et cetera, so.
Mr. Miller and then Mr. Van Truren.
Thank you. Mr. Zemek, thanks
Yes.
for joining us. Real quick, the multi-purpose, is that going to be both bike and?
Correct.
So we could possibly even add on to that off of those particular trails for bike access as well?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's really a match with the existing trail through Beaver Creek Park is, which is multi-purpose, like
Bike
walk, strollers and
Right.
stuff.
Thank you.
Mr. Van Truren.
This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into the agreement. Does the administration have any feedback on this? I'm
I
assuming you
think
have no
this will work
problems with it.
fine. I think this will work fine this way. Once they get the agreement and easement done, the mayor will be able to sign off on it, and we'll have the donated easement will be in their hands. So that would work fine.
Mrs. Wissel.
I'm going to take this to the floor of council
With the emergency.
with the emergency.
Mr. Winarski.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to take this to the floor of council. Roll call vote. Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Janik.
Yes.
Mr. Van Truren.
Yes.
Mr. Bukovac. I'm sorry, he's not here. Mr. Winarski.
Yes.
And the chair also votes yes.
I voted yes.
Mrs. Wissel, I'm sorry.
She said
Is there any further comments? Mr. Miller?
I just moved to adjourn.
Mr. Winarski?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Roll call vote. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Van Truren?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
And Mrs. Wissel.
Yes.
We are adjourned at 7:10.
Seriously, we'll come back after everything's adopted and kind of give us a grand presentation. I'd love it.
What's that?
Get control of your
I'd like to see a more specific definition of what the easement
It's like,
area
get control of your committee.
is. I guess somebody knows that.
It's very small. The easement area is very small.
Good evening, I'd like to call this meeting for Building and Lands, 7:10. We'll use the roll call or the attendance from the previous meeting. And we have in front of us tonight, revisiting A-16-16, a resolution to instruct the Safety Service Director to implement 2016 sidewalk repair program not to exceed $40,000. Mr. Winarski, would you like to just kind of briefly summarize, since a lot of this was spearheaded by you?
Well, thank you, Mr. Janik. It's just quite simply implementing a book or an ordinance that's been on the books since 1965. Council simply needs to pass a resolution asking that the administration put into effect the repair program as outlined by ordinance. And after we say okay, it's up to the administration to administer it. We simply just give them the go-ahead to do such. When we left off last time, it was tabled for consideration, and I believe that's probably a good place to pick up.
Okay. Is there any other comments anyone would like to make? Councilwoman Wasil?
Mr. Law Director, do you and the Assistant Law Director both concur with that?
Well, I mean, it's a little more complicated. I shouldn't say it's a little more complicated what Mr. Winarski said, but essentially, you know, the reason this is before council is because council, in essence, is assessing members of the public or residents cost to repair their sidewalks in the events that they don't do themselves. So the steps would be council directs, I think, the administration to first investigate what needs to be done. And then I think council or the administration would present to council certain areas for which council would then say there is a resolution of necessity, which would say these areas here, start wherever the administration feels is appropriate, basically giving notice to those homeowners that they are to, in fact, repair or replace their sidewalks. And because it's a taxing event, basically you're assessing people fees or taxation, basically. That's why it's before council. It's not simply because it's before council, it's because you're actually requiring someone to pay out of pocket something. And that starts the process. And once there's a resolution of necessity, the clerk of council will then notify the homeowners, property owners, of the requirement to repair or replace the sidewalk, give them a time certain, cannot be less than 30 days, and to do so. If they don't repair it or replace the sidewalks within the time period, whatever we decide it's going to be, then the city will then proceed and repair it or replace it ourselves, or itself, and then the city will then assess, pursuant to the resolution of necessity, assess the homeowner the cost of the repair or replacement. So what we needed to do is first, I think you pass a resolution, it's basically instructing the mayor and the mayor's office, the safety service director, to investigate the areas of town where there's issues. At that point, they would present it to council, and council would then pass the resolution of necessity, directing the certain action. So
let me make sure I understand this. There will be two resolutions. This first one is to basically direct the mayor to go out and basically do a survey. Is the wording of this resolution acceptable to you right now, or do you need to?
And I don't think, well, first of all, I don't think a resolution needs to be passed for the mayor to go out and determine.
And I don't think it has to come back. Once they give us the authority to do it, we make our list, and then you go out for bids and notify the homeowners. I don't think it has to come back.
You do. You need to, look, what you're doing, you're assessing specific property owners' costs, and the Ohio Revised Code requires the administration or someone from the city provide to the council. This is, Jackson Street, pulling streets out of my head, whatever street, these are the areas in question, these are that require this, pass a resolution of necessity. At that point, the clerk of council is directed to notify this homeowner. So we're kind of far away from even getting to that point.
Well, again, my question is the legislation before us the proper first step?
Obviously, I don't have it in front of me. I don't think you need legislation to direct you don't have to direct the safety service director or even the mayor to do anything.
Yeah, I think so.
I guess Mr. Carlson, what does the resolution say?
Well, I don't have it in front of me either, but I recall it from the last time, and
It was
Essentially,
proposed-
it's-
it was proposed language from Mr. Winiarski, which I would say we
Right.
should not pass that resolution because it's not where it should be or where we should be. Quite frankly, the mayor and safety service director can start investigating this on their own. They don't need council's approval, or you do.
No, I just want to recall what we had talked about, I think the essence, Tony's right, the essence of what you're doing is just instructing the administration to get started. And you're giving them a monetary limit that you're proposing that they spend in this particular year for the sidewalks. Tony's right then that there's this kind of a parallel process that the Ohio Revised Code requires. Some of the steps are similar or the same as what are in your ordinance, but other ones are different. So for example, the Ohio Revised Code talks about the resolution of necessity. That's a very different thing than this resolution, which is just telling them to get started.
Okay, I'm gonna retain my right to the floor right now, because I'm asking questions of both the assistant librarian and Amherst. I just wanna make sure procedurally, we're doing the first step. I think this is a good idea, and it says here, council shall pass a resolution declaring the necessity of sidewalk repair for a stated year. Do we have that?
I would not use that
That's what our ordinance
phraseology
says.
for this resolution, because a resolution of necessity has a very specific meaning under Ohio Revised
Right.
Code 72102. We're not at that point where anyone can say, here's a plat, and here's the streets in question, and this is, the lots in question, these need to be repaired. We're
What do
not
we need
at
to
that
do?
point.
But, okay,
Yeah.
what do we need to do? I mean, I got the floor, I wanna do this, what do we need to do?
Let me just read the first line from our ordinance. It says, council shall pass a resolution declaring the necessity of sidewalk repair, not specific areas of sidewalk, just the necessity for sidewalk repair for a stated year. So that's just giving us the authority to go out and find those areas. The next step is for safety service
Okay.
director to find those areas.
Is that what
Does
this
that sound-
resolution's doing?
Yes, yes it is.
It does, but there's a whole.
And then you gotta come back and have the necessity.
Okay. I guess the point is there's a whole gap here between declaring, simply the language declaring there's a necessity to the point where the clerk of council has data for service. We're not even at that point. Because the Ohio, hold on, excuse me. The Ohio Revised Code says that there's all these provisions, 72902, A, B, C, D, and E. I don't think we've gotten to that point. There's a gap there that needs to be, we need to follow the Ohio Revised Code provision in that regard.
Okay, now, I wanna do the right thing. If we pass a resolution, does that work with what you said we have to do?
It gets the process started. And
I
then the
think
next
that's all we
big
wanna do.
task.
I mean, that's what we want. I don't
Yeah,
wanna,
okay.
I don't disagree with any of your counsel. I just wanna make sure we're doing it right.
No, I think it's fine to do it this way.
So
I
it's
mean,
okay if I make a motion to send this to the floor of council?
Sure.
Are you-
But it's
okay.
not gonna be it's not gonna look like what Mr. Winarski
It's, I can
prepared.
make a motion to send this to the floor of council, and you'll fix it so
Yes,
at the meeting.
yes, I will.
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, you have a comment?
Um,
Have a motion.
I guess we have a motion on the floor, so that I may speak, I'll second it. But I think our law director is right, there is a huge gap missing, and in my opinion, that gap is extremely important for our citizens to be aware of. And that gap is going to, I hope, define exactly when they're gonna be notified, how much time they're gonna have to get a bid, how much time they're gonna have to get that bid executed. And then if it doesn't get done in that amount of time, what are their options for assessment? And I think that those things need to be looked at. I would be arguing that it better be more than 30 days for them to be able to get a bid and to get that bid executed and sidewalks repaired. And I think the more we give a heads up that their sidewalks are under notice, the more time we give them to get a bid, the more likely that they're going to get a better price. And then if they're in a situation where they cannot replace their entire sidewalk because their frontage is 100 feet, I think we need to give them options with the city for, say, something like, assessment in installments across a period of time that would allow them to make this payment. I don't like this idea of hitting a hardship of a couple grand or more to put in sidewalks, especially if the bids are getting, says they have to redo the base and they've got, 90 feet of sidewalk to put in. That could get very expensive, and I know many of our constituents are on fixed income. Many of our constituents have not planned or budgeted for this, and with this economy and the incomes that are not moving in this day and age, people are seeing expenses climb, but their income's not. And this is just something that I think we have to be very sensitive to our neighbors when we ask them to replace an entire frontage of sidewalk, if that may be the case. So that gap needs to be, I will definitely be keeping an eye on that gap, and I will be hoping that we all consider the impact that this will have on the residents that we're going to ask to be assessed for a new sidewalk. That is all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Okay, we had a second by Mr. Miller, and then are we entertaining comments on the subject, or? Mr. Van Turen?
I don't know if the administration, the safety service director can answer this, but are residents going to be given some sort of an idea of what the city might charge for a project as opposed to what they would get charged by a private contractor, so they can compare the two different prices?
We could go out right away with some sort of bid process so they could have some sort of idea.
All right. And I don't suppose you could anticipate whether the city's cost for replacing would be less than a private contractor.
And some people could even do it themselves.
Yeah.
It's not that they have to go get a contractor. I mean, some people could do the work
But
themselves.
before they are given the...
If this process gets started, I'll do my due diligence so residents will have the ability to see what per square foot probably a contractor that we would bid for might
Okay.
charge on a bulk rate to what they might get going out finding it
Sure.
themselves.
Okay, good. I think a lot
So
of
once this
residents
process
want
gets
to-
started, I will start work on my end.
That's my main concern. I want them to at least understand how much the city would assess them for replacing it as opposed to them doing it themselves. I think that's important.
I think the residents would also have two options. I think they could pay outright what the city contractor would charge, and there would probably be some sort of discount, I think, than what they would be assessed. So I think there'll be actually two payment options too, if I understand it correctly.
All right, terrific. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Mr. Van Turen. Mrs. Wasil?
Yeah, I just want to make sure. Mr. Miller has listed some concerns. It sounds like the mayor and the safety services director feel that those are legitimate concerns.
I would have
and
those
you
same
need to
concerns,
adjust.
absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And it also sounds like the law director has done a lot of due diligence on what the state law requires, and it sounds like you are going to be working with the law director to make sure that that big gap that procedurally that we have, that the state fills in, is going to be followed. So, is that correct?
We will work every
Okay,
step of the
all
way
right,
with the law department.
all right.
Absolutely.
Excellent, okay, excellent. And I really appreciate everything that the law director and his department have done to get the background on the additional requirements that kind of fill in the gaps. And I also appreciate the commitment that two of you have made and that you're making to the law department to work with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wasil. I guess I do want to add a comment also and agree with Mr. Miller that, I think a lot of people, when they move into their home, they have an assumption that the sidewalk is one of the last things they have to repair or work on. I think there are a lot of sandstone sidewalks we have that need that repair, and it worries me sometimes when they have sandstone sidewalks that are so old in terms of being in front of their homes for safety purposes. But I noticed also, this question's for you, Mr. Law Director, if there is a builder or contractor that puts, for instance, a water drain in the middle of a sidewalk, and over time that water drain and the lip of that water drain has raised to the point where it becomes an obstruction or a safety hazard, will the homeowner be responsible to replace that entire sidewalk?
Are you talking about the lateral coming from a home? Well, you're
Yeah.
responsible for your laterals. The city's
Correct.
responsible for the main lines, the laterals coming out of your home. That's your obligation.
This would be on the tree lawn, for example.
Well, I guess Mr. Mayor. can
Yeah,
talk about
I think
the
what you know,
portion.
what you're talking about, there's some sidewalks and driveway aprons have either manholes or water shut-off valves.
Correct.
Those things don't rise, they're buried into the ground many feet.
There's two of them
The
currently.
sidewalks and driveway aprons settle around those things, those stay in place. I mean, they've checked elevations, the sidewalk would be settling around them, so those, so far, it's been city policy that those those haven't changed, it's the sidewalk that's settled around it. So we would probably still require those as being fixed. We'll look into it more, but right now the policy is the resident is still responsible for
I noticed there's two in Raven glass that they're pretty dangerous, and they're raised quite a bit above the concrete in the middle of the sidewalk. So you have to leave the sidewalk and go onto the grass to get around it. Thank you. Mr. Winarski?
Had the same situation down where I lived. There was a couple of them actually. It appeared that they were rising when actually it was a sidewalk that was settling. Made a call to the building department, and they sent Mr. Murphy down, and they were able to drop it level with the sidewalk. There's things they can do, assuming that there's some room to play with. So I guess we're going to learn a lot through this process, and that's one of the things what we can do with regards to that part of the learning process.
Any other comments?
I would like to make one, this is really a bigger job than you might expect. I mean, you're kind of throwing it to the administration now, and they're going to have to make a lot of decisions about, what areas they're gonna focus on, how they're gonna define a defect such that it should be repaired, and make a whole bunch of judgments like that. And I think, and there are gonna be objections made to how they approach it, is this a problem that the homeowner caused, is this a problem that the city caused? And working through those things is gonna take some time. I don't think the council should expect that this is something that's gonna happen within 2 or 3 months even. I think it's good to get it started, but the process is going to be a longer one than you might expect. If you're gonna do it right and if you're gonna be fair about how you do it. So I think it's a good to start it. Every journey requires the first step, and that's kind of what this resolution does, but you're gonna have to keep at it.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Mr. Van Turen?
Just really quickly, I think it's good that we're doing this now because we don't know who's going to be in place in future administrations. The problem's only going to get worse. It's going to have to be taken care of eventually. And as Mr. Carlson said, this is a big job. It's going to take an administration that is competent and knows what it's doing. And I think we're in good hands now. We know we're in good hands now. So it's the best time to get it done rather than kicking it down the road another 4, 8, 20 years for an administration to take care of that we don't know will be as competent. So I'm confident that our safety service director, our mayor, the administration can do this for us.
Thank you, Mr. Van Turen. Anyone else? All right, we have the on the floor to take the resolution to council, and seconded by Mr. Miller, and we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Van Turen?
Yes.
Mr. Van Turen?
Yes.
Oh,
I said.
oh, sorry. Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mrs. Wisselt?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much. Any other motions? Mr. Winarski?
To adjourn.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Goodell. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned at 7:30. Thank you.